So hello everybody, welcome back to the present. Today we are going to be looking at the conditionals. So, what are the conditionals? You are probably have seen them in the past, but let's remind ourselves what they are. Basically, they are a specific type of sentences that are composed by two parts. Okay, one of those parts is a condition, therefore the name, and the other part is the result that we are going to get or we are going to have if that condition is met. So the condition can go at the beginning or at the end of the sentence, and so the order can be changed. We can start with the condition and the result, or first with the result and then the condition. But the most important thing in a conditional sentence is that whatever is being stated in the condition has to be met, has to happen in order for the second part, for the result to also happen or to also take place. Okay, if we don't get the condition met, we don't get the result. So here we have an example. If you travel to the future, you will see hover cars. So hover cars are those cars that are kind of flying over the ground, like a few centimeters over the ground. So if you want to see them, you have to travel to the future. If you travel to the future, you will see them. If you don't travel to the future, you won't see them. That's the idea. If the condition is met, you get the result. If not, you won't get it. Other important things to remember. The particles that we use to create conditional sentences are mostly if and unless. If is used to introduce the condition in a positive manner. If something happened, if you got A, then you're going to have B. It can be translated in Spanish as C. Si A, entonces B. And unless introduces the condition, but in a negative way. So it could be translated as a menos que, a no ser que. Okay, so unless you get A, you won't have B. No ser que se cumpla A, no vas a tener B. I'm remembering this in case anybody doesn't remember exactly the meaning of unless. I think you're probably all familiar with if. So let's continue. Then, how many different types of conditionals do we have? We have many. I mean, different classifications can give us a different number of types of conditions that can be introduced with different names. In here, we're going to use one of the most spread one of the most used in grammars, that is first, second, and third conditional. As you can see, these people have got lots of imagination, and the grammarians have come up with very creative and colorful names. Okay, and now let's going to have a look straight away at the different conditionals. Okay, so let's start with the first conditional. Even before I start with the first conditional, I wanted to say something that may be interesting in order to remember these three types of conditionals. They are going to be introduced in a degree of certainty. So the first one is going to be the most certain to happen if the condition is met. The second one is less certain, and the last one, the third conditional, will be the least certain of to happen. So the one that we have the less guarantees that is going to happen, or none in that case, when we meet the condition. So let's start with the first one. The first conditional is used to introduce possible future actions that are quite likely to happen if we meet the condition. So the condition is easy to meet, and if we meet the condition, something is going to happen, and it's quite certain. So we introduce the condition with if or unless. Okay, and in this case, the action of the condition is going to be introduced in the present simple. Okay, if a light, as in the example, if a lightning strikes the cable, okay, the strikes, or whichever verb we use, would be in the present simple, and the result will be introduced with will. Okay, the same particle that we use to create the future simple. So if a lightning strikes the cable, the time machine will work, okay? Or unless, if we use unless Doc fixes the car, Marty won't go back to the future. So this is the first condition, introduced to use for possible future actions, okay, that are quite likely to happen if the condition is met. The second one, before we go to the second one, let's please reply this question for the virtual room to make sure that you are watching at this video and you are not sleeping. You can pause the video and you have a few seconds to do this, and then we continue. The second condition, okay, is very similar, but in this case, the action is less certain to happen. Generally, we often use this second conditional to speak about things that are hypothetical or imaginary, things that are uncertain, or things that are so difficult difficult enough to take place that we are talking about a hypothetical. So we again are going to introduce the condition using if or unless, but instead of using the present simple, we would use the past simple, okay? That is the way that English people have to say something in the subjunctive. We have the subjunctive, si fuera o fuese, si hiciera o hiciese. Since English people don't have the subjunctive, they use the past simple, okay? If Marty changed something important in the past, and then the result, again, to imply this lesser degree of certainty, of less certainty, instead of using will, that is more certain, we use would, that is the uncertain equivalent to will. So if Marty changed something important in the past, the future would be different, okay? With unless, Martin would disappear unless he made sure his parents fall in love in the past. Now we have the second question. You can again pause the video if you need to. You reply it on the virtual room, and we continue with the last one, the third conditional. So the third conditional is the most uncertain. Well, it's so uncertain that it's almost certain. It's a condition that cannot be met because it is already in the past. Therefore, the result become impossible. Okay? Again, we are talking about a condition, okay, that cannot be met already because it's in the past, and therefore the result becomes impossible. Okay? In this case, to go to an even higher degree of uncertainty, if before we've moved from the present to the past simple, now we're going to move to the past, from past simple to the past perfect simple to introduce the condition. And check out that in here we are always going to use if, not unless. So if Marty hadn't met Doc, okay, so we are going to the past perfect, and then to introduce a higher degree of certainty, we are going to have a perfect modal verb to introduce the condition. Would have plus the verb. So if Martin hadn't met Doc, he wouldn't have traveled to the past. Okay? And this is the third conditional. Now we have the third question, okay, to make sure that you haven't fallen asleep yet. You can pause the video and have a go at it. And then that's it. You will have the resources that I've used for the background image, the soundtrack of the Back to the Future film, and see you in the next